G'day and welcome to Control Climate Hub. And on this little video, we're going to go through some basic steps on how do you go about changing up blades on the Exactia family from Advantage. Now, the Exactia family from Advantage is actually quite large, through from little clip-ins to C-mods where this can be one zone or two zones. You have the, what they call them, the SARE, so small Exactia, which could be one zone or it could be 4 zones. There's FAIRs and BEARs, and so then there's a few others I can't remember off the top of my head. So like the BEAR, for example, this one here, it can be one zone, so you can zone the inlet. It can be up to 6 zones on the outlet. So some homes you can actually install the home with only like 2 fittings. For example, if you put 2 BEARs in, or BEAR or SARE, you could have potentially 10 zones of 2 fittings. So, which is pretty cool, and it gives lots of flexibility, and it changes the methodology about how you go about doing it, and it reduces the amount of time you need to tape on and fit on to do BTOs and zone motors and so forth. If you're looking at the most common scenario is everybody runs off and does a BTO, and then do a zone motor, then another BTO, another zone motor. One of the biggest challenges you have with that scenario is you end up choking up your unit, and quite often you have poor performance from your air conditioning system purely because you may have a master bedroom that might have a 300mm duct going, feeding a master bedroom in the ensuite. But the net result is you've got a 16 kilowatt ducted unit that's trying to push all its air into one 300mm duct. Doesn't work that well. And it's quite often the problem with the Exactias or like products. You can actually do what I refer to as quadrant zoning, or quadrant duct design, where you are having major trunk. So you only have 2 styles of ducting: outlet ducts and then trunk ducts. And instead of the traditional BTO style, which is you end up going stepping down along the way. Which is fine if you're doing constant volume, but when you're doing variable air volume, is what we're about to talk about, how we put blades in and zone motors in, then having a variable air volume system really starts causing choking issues with your system. So I need to focus on what we're about. We're going to be talking about how we change the blades in a zone motor or an Exactia so that you can put zone motors on or put manual dampers on so that you can control airflow across your system more evenly, more balanced. And maybe you might have a system that has one zone already on the inlet, and you want to turn that into 2, 3 or 4 zones on the outlets. So let's go about how we do that. First of all, we got 2 styles of zone blades. If we're talking about the current version are a molded damper. The center section, obviously we've got the 2 cogs on either end. This one here is easier illustrated. Normally all the cogs are black, but I've noticed of late that the half cogs, these are the ones that have only got cogs on half, or your gears on half of the cog or blades. Get that right. We've only got cogs on half of the or nodules on half of the cogs. I'll get there eventually. Anyway, so the reason for that is that can actually then turn and not strike and bind. So if we turn that around, as I turn that, the other one turns with it. So how does that affect things? So when we're doing one zone, so the opening is one zone, you're only going to be using the full cogs on all the time with the blades. Now, for those of you that might have the very early edition, now we're talking early 2000s here. Those blades were absolutely completely flat. They were not molded. Like these ones have got curves in them, they've got strengthening bars, they've got writing on them and arrows and so forth. These are the very generation 1 or V1 blades were just completely flat. Now, we're not going to talk about those. If you have those, reach out, because it's going to be just simpler to change them out to the newer blades. So if we're just doing one zone, then we're going to be installing, for example, this example, 4 blades with full cogs on either end. Now, if you want to split that into 2, and we're going to end up putting a divider in there, so this would end up having something. So in this example, you'll see if it's going to be just one zone, like a 350 or 400 mil duct, that will be on both sides. You would then say, all right, there's going to be 4 blades that'll connect to make one zone. Now, if you want to split that into having 2 zones, so these will have the adapter, the neck adapters that go on it, that there will be 2, for example, anywhere from 150 mil through to 300 mil can fit here. And on this side, anything from 300 through to 400 mil can fit on this side. Now, the necks and adapters, they all come separately. You can order them separately. They just clip on and off, and I'll show you how we do that. When you go to clip things on and off, the key secret is having yourself a flathead screwdriver, and I'll explain why. So when you're wanting to take off a neck, we need to be able to, you'll find that there is 4 sets, or actually, and some of the new ones are actually 8 sets of clips all the way around the neck or the adapter. So the key component is looking for where they'll be. So on the sides, you can see the 2 spots here, and then at the top you see them here. You can actually see how they got the notches in the adapter there, or the neck. What we're trying to do is we're going to put our flathead screwdriver in, and we're just gently leveraging that forward. You hear that, how that's clicked off? Now, if you leverage it too much, you'll snap the necks off, and then you'll have to go through and put screws in to screw them back in. Little tip on that one is only use short screws. You do not want to push through the insulation onto the blades. You want to bind the blade. So you just gently go around and you clip them. Just be mindful not to slip and run your knuckles into the plastic and ripple the skin off your knuckles. Done that a few times. If you haven't taken my sarcasm there, which go wrong, I just get underneath that edge and just click. What I do is just slightly turn it, and then it allows them to pop off. Quite often the Vanagere will send these out all clipped on. I always found it easier to do all the ducting when the necks are all off. I go up to the duct, tape it on. Big key point is always do an anchor tape first, before then you pull your inner core over, then you tape on your inner core, then you come back and tape on your outer core. Making sure that you actually get a good tape attachment to the neck. Often I see them falling off because effectively all they're doing is using the tape to pull the tape tight and having pressure without actually physically sticking onto there. So now that we've taken that neck off, we'll go about showing you how you go about putting in zone motors, so or the zone blades. If we grab the other zone blades from over here. So there is a couple of sets of arrows on the blades. So there's arrows here that point along the long side, and then there's arrows that point to the cog. Now, the arrows that point along the long side is the ones that we're using to reference us for when we're doing 2 zones. If we're just doing 1 zone, we're using the arrow that's referencing the cog. So let's start with what we do if you're doing it on a 1 zone scenario. What we want to do is we're going to start by saying, okay, that arrow needs to be facing us when the zone is closed. So how we go about doing that? So we work out, and in these earlier polystyrene ones, they actually have indentations on how the zones actually flow. The newer version come with a stick-on foam. It doesn't have any impressions of where the blades are supposed to travel. Don't ask me the question why. I don't know the answer to that question. All right, so we look at there, we look at the indent. So for simplicity, we look at, we use this polystyrene version, just simpler for those to start with. So we want to have it so that the arrow is facing us at the top. So we turn the blade, we put our bottom one end of the cog in, and then we're just going to flex it. Literally, when you're just going to put it in your hand, and you've got to turn the blade, bow the blade to get the blades in. So that's now got that one up there. Now if we want to go to the next one, so we've already got our first blade in. Now it gets a little more trickier. We want again, arrow to the top, so we got to remember these are opposed blades, so whatever the way the first one turns, the second one's going to turn opposite. Again, flexing it to go in. Once it's in, we then close it, make sure all the gaps, we want to make sure that gap is closing and it's consistent and nice. All right, so that's, and I would flow that along to be all 4 if we're going to put in 4 blades. Now, the other thing is just making sure that it all turns nicely and flows. Now, if you're going to put a zone motor or a manual damper into it, next step you would do is you'll work out where you're going to put the zone motor, and you'll then knock out the little circle for that. Now, next step is we're going to change this into 2 blades. So again, it's the same process. Reverse, we just bend the blade to pull it back out. And remember, I set this up to be one zone, so I now have to take out all the blades because I got to reconfigure the orientation of the cogs. So now we want to have it so we're doing two blades or 2 zones going in. So all the arrows need to point towards the center. So same thing again, work out the rotation of it. We put that first one in, that's arrows to the center. Now we put the other full cog on the other side. So now we've got the 2 arrows facing the center. Now we bring in the complication of being the half blade or half cog. What we want to do, again, working out where the center arrows are, and again, reverse polarity to the first cog. We're putting that one in. And the same for the other side. We want to have it so that we've got our center arrows going in, reverse the polarity for the first blade, drop that in. Now always make sure, once you've got that done, that you turn them, that there is no binding. They need to make sure they are aligned and parallel. And then what you'll find, with the arrows all now facing the front, we have a nice little gap in the middle. Why is that, you ask? Well, if we just put in our adapter where the 150 to 300 ducts go, if we put that on there now, hopefully you can see what's going to be the problem, is we have, if we open up this damper here, say for example the zone closest to me, there's a path where air can go into the other duct, and you may not want to condition that room, so that becomes a problem. So how do we overcome that? Well, they have a nice little thing called the tongue. The tongue clips into the adapter. With that now slides in between, or in that little gap that we've got present because of the way the blades are set up. And you'll see now that this can open. It's independent of that. There is going to be some degree of leakage because I can put my screwdriver through here, but it's 98% good. The challenge we have is if you've got long duct runs and you're trying to push air downstairs, upstairs might get a little more than what you think you should get, but not everything in life is perfect. But that is how we go about making 2 zones. All right, so just to recap, we've talked about you need a big flathead screwdriver. Oh, sorry, the last thing we haven't done, I'll get to that in a second. So we'll recap, we've got a big flathead screwdriver, using it to unclip the adapters to take the ducts off. We then take out all the blades. then we just want to make sure we've got full or half cog setups, depending on whether or not you want to be making one zone or two zones out of a side. Then you'll be obviously fit those, making sure we have a tongue attached to the adapter if you didn't have one previously. And once that's all done, once you've got them all in, then we go through and you literally clip out the little plug. So from now, it will shows the cog. So from here, you can put in your manual damper, which gives you the ability to control that zone motor, or that zone, or those blades, not the zone motor, sorry. And then if we can do the zone motor, we keep in mind we've got to make sure the orientation's right. So if this is closed, we want to have the blades closed, put that down, and then we'll screw that down. All right. If you have broken any of the clips on the necks or adapters, getting them on and off, remember, short screws you do not want to be protruding past and binding the blades, otherwise you're going to burn out your zone motors. So thank you for watching this video. If you want more specific information about a particular setup or scenario, reach out to us, happy to do it for you. This is just a quick overview and get you started, and now's a good time to ask you to follow and subscribe and like, or even comment how you go in your system, or the problems you have. You know, you might comment whether or not you prefer the exact ears versus a barrel damper. I'm happy to have a robust debate about that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.